Thanks for tuning in to Ginandtantra, Spirituality with a Twist. Once again, you have Daniel driving the ship as my partner Eric is out on vacation. But, as they say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. I'm not likening myself to a mouse or a rat. I'm just, using a euphemism. So, anywho's. But I wanted to welcome on my first cousin and good friend, Joey Barhoumeh, who is a personal trainer, and you will already have had heard his introduction in the beginning of the podcast. But Joe, let me give you a chance to say what up.
Hey, what's going on, Daniel? Good afternoon and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. That's right. That's the motivation behind the episode, right? So thanks for bringing that.
Yes, that is why we are here.
That's right. Got
a little excited there.
Yeah, no, it's all good. All right, so let's just hop right in, man. So the motivation of the episode definitely is change in habits, right? New Year's resolution and kind of like our culture's acceptance with change at this one time of the year. We don't talk about it any other time of the year. Although I think probably for myself and maybe yourself, definitely Eric, and probably many of our listeners, personal change it's like New Year's is every week, basically. We're like, okay, how can I, I want to get rid of this habit. How can I improve this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
But, the culture gives a moment to speak on it. And so people are more inclined to have this, like, I don't know, I guess, communal awareness of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, anytime I get somebody a little bit more receptive, I love it.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate that it's only once a year, but,
Yeah, better than zero.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true, man.
So the motivations around what we're doing is that, but then also, like, I'm currently reading or just about finished with this book by Gabor Mate called The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. It's a really deep read on how trauma affects all the various levels of being, from infant to adolescence to childhood, or infant, you know what I'm saying, the growth of the person, and then how that affects relationships, families, the society, and then continuing out, like basically saying that people are living the adaptations to their traumas, basically, and that gets passed down generation to generation. And we're going to talk about this because, as the audience knows, you're a personal trainer. I still operate as a personal trainer. We're both in like the kind of healthcare and health and fitness industry. We see this. And people are working through various layers. Would you say that as people come to you and you guys are doing whatever work you're doing together, would you say that they start to break through some psychological layers and as their physical, I guess, prowess develops?
And that right there can be the beauty of fitness, and especially in its purity. Like if you're trying to find like a complete protocol of fitness, you have to deal with that psychological element, trauma element. And that can come in a variety of ways, not just fitness. It's everything around fitness if you want to be healthy. And then a lot of times it can also be negative, unfortunately, because of media or so much information out there that people are just, I'm going to take this and I'm going to try this. And then, and they just get, So I definitely experience what you're saying.
Yeah. No, it's, and I hear what you're saying, that like people are trying to apply a salve to help with the symptom, but they're not looking at the root, and you can make changes, but if you don't get to the deeper levels, maybe. Now,
I'm a fan.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm a fan of moving your body first.
Sure.
If you're stuck,
get
your body moving. And then that can be whatever feels right to you, especially get a coach, obviously, if you can, right? But moving first, and you will be amazed at how quick, or in my opinion, from what I see, how quick people all of a sudden need to address some of these psychological issues, right? Because they start seeing, I need maybe better sleep if I plan on going on that walk tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
there's also different levels of thinking, right? Let's take walking, for example, right? Which is a really good one, but bicycling is another one that I've heard people talk about. They call it linear thinking, is that they're engaged in a physical process in such a way that they can't ramble on in their mind as if they were just seated, because they're focusing on one step in front of the other. You have to stop for cars to come by. Maybe, some dog is, you're aware of your environment, but this sort of gives you expansiveness in your mind, to kind of open up and tackle some different problems. And to your point, sometimes those problems are like right underneath the surface, like right there, ready to like pop.
Yeah, or hormonally too, right?
Sure.
Just moving your body and maybe walking towards an open horizon. I mean,
Hmm.
hormonally, that can get a lot going to your body, and then maybe you have an opportunity, or at least a window to work on your brain or work on some of that trauma.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's totally true. So as we talk about this, things will, we're going to do this. This is how this live talk, right? But this is how the conversation will go, Joe. So you're,
Yeah, definitely. Let me know.
yeah, no, you're good. You're
This
good.
is
You're
this is
good.
awesome. I love always spending some time together and just
Yeah.
talking it out, right?
Yeah. I think the other part that is interesting at this particular time of year is that in Daoist theory or Chinese medical theory, depending on how you look at it, as I'm an acupuncturist, and there's a lot of acupuncture students and acupuncturists who listen to this podcast, which is we're always grateful for all of our audience, whether you're Chinese medical folk or not. But this is the season of this is winter time, and according to Chinese medicine or Taoist theory, this is the season of the water element, and the water element is associated with reflection and wisdom. At this particular time, we're usually like storing things, right? People put on a little bit of weight in the wintertime. There's sort of a natural move towards like sadness a little bit, right? There's less sun, but it's also it's an internal movement of like energetically, we're going inside, right? We're taking stock of what it is that it's useful for us, and we're bringing it into our center. And then as the springtime comes, then we like bust out, just like the plants do outside. But I think that like at this particular time of the year, still water was probably the first source of a mirror that we had for ourselves, right? And so as
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this season, I'm thinking about still water being reflective, and us sort of looking in the reflection of ourselves and saying, what, at this time of year, metaphorically and physically speaking, what about myself can I take from my reflection and think about, and use my own wisdom and my own application to try and make some changes. So I think it is apropos for this time of the year culturally, but I think physiologically, as human beings, as mammals specifically, that we go inside at this particular time and sort of take stock of what's important for us and then move forward with that change. Does that make a little bit of...
I think that's one of the healthiest things we can do. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Taking stock of ourselves, right? And just reflection. I mean that's where it starts. If you can grasp it truly, if you can truly understand it with anything, particularly for me in helping people lifestyle change.
Yeah.
If they already come in and they've already reflected, and however they've already seen it, then we can truly start with step one. If the reflection is fake and it's a false motivation, and
Yeah.
you're not looking in the mirror and you're looking into the guy next to you's mirror,
Yeah.
that'll come out a little bit in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little bit of...
And
It's funny. We'll get to it in a little bit, but like that's part of the culture. Competition.
absolutely. God, I hate it.
I mean, that's part of the culture is competition. And some competition is healthy because it pushes us.
I've been sucked in, believe me. I mean, yes, it's easy. And I love admitting that I got sucked in, because I always swore I wouldn't be that guy. But I also
in terms
realize,
of what, Joe? Sucked in. Give me specifics. Sucked into what?
For example, competing with other people on Instagram that I don't even know, other trainers, right? My clients are, well, they perform, or my clients are doing this, my clients are doing that, or I'm doing this, or I look like this. And a lot of it is the competition part. And it's a little bit of what I like doing to drive myself, right? Like, and none of it is harmful. But at some point it becomes, how was I to expect to navigate something I didn't grow up with, like the internet, not getting addicted. I've never had to deal with these type of dopamine responses, if you will. We were talking about dopamine.
We'll go there next. Yeah.
But like then after a while, figuring out, wow, this is all fake. As far as like getting sucked in.
Sure.
So I love the internet for stuff like this, but yeah, I mean, that becomes the problem. It really becomes the problem. And that's why talking like this, people with experience, people with knowledge, people who take the time to slow it down, this is where the real information comes from.
Yeah.
Not from that 30-second clip of TikTok.
No. No, that's
Which of course I love getting, right? Hey, I saw this thing on TikTok, and if I just take this hula hoop for 2 hours a day, will I lose weight? I'm like, look, if you just dedicate 2 hours a day to anything, you're gonna
yeah,
do phenomenal.
yeah,
So
yeah.
go,
I mean,
go
I'm
get
happy
it.
that
What are you?
I'm happy you got 2 hours to do one thing with. That's great,
I,
like
I just would love you in here for 1 hour. I think I could do a lot more than the hula hoop. But hey, if that resonates with you, get it. But this is a real example, by the way, and what I'm telling you, and
yeah,
it was shared. People. This was a trend. So what do you expect people to? This is what I'm seeing. So yeah, that's what it is.
yeah,
And people, I'm hoping to kind of just help cut through some of that.
sure. No, I know. I totally, it makes sense. All right, so let's talk about like choices versus habits, because you brought this up. So we're gonna switch my order on the here a little bit, but
I'm sorry, D.
no, please. So let's talk about choices and habits, right? So theme of the podcast here is making changes, right?
Okay.
And so let's talk about choice for a second. Choice, how I'm going to define it for our conversation, and for our listeners, so they can be with us mentally here, because we do have a very kind of like engaged audience. I would say people who listen, and I could say they're of utmost intelligence and linguistic ability.
Love it.
It's like you compliment people. You just say, "You guys are great. Oh, you're so good." No, but I'm serious though. The feedback that we get is always very positive. I guess we're not going to get a ton of negative. People just keep it to themselves. But if you got negative feedback, email me. I'm all good with it. ginandtantra@gmail.com. Let me know. I'm good. Positive, negative.
Absolutely.
I take it all in and I recycle it.
Yes.
But
Take
anyways,
it
okay.
in, man.
So choice is something that you will do moment by moment, right? So someone could have a choice, like we talked about earlier, Joe. Someone could have a choice of eating a salad for lunch. This is different than having a habit of healthy eating on a regular basis, right? Because someone who probably eats a little bit healthier will highlight the times in which they probably don't eat healthy, like
Yeah.
they're not
Right.
proud of
Right.
it. Now, I
Yeah.
will always, as I do, say that these things are oftentimes influenced by people who don't have the means to be able to afford healthy or healthier foods. So everything that I always say is relative to your ability to choose your own food
Absolutely.
things or your diet things,
Yeah.
right? So on
Love.
and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely a good distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so choice and habit. Choice is something you do right now. Habit is something you do all the time, right? But choice obviously builds habit. Now there's a distinction, and you mentioned this earlier, is that typically when people want to make change, they want to change a behavior that is detrimental to them, right? Or not, at least maybe not moving them in a direction that they're wanting to go. For me, meaning that like the momentary pleasure that they get out of that doesn't have long-term positive effects on them, but they still get a little hit. They get that dopamine pop, they get that endorphin release,
Mm-hmm.
but it's short-lived. And so therefore, when it's over with, they're like, yeah, darn it, why did I just eat 48 cookies? um and then you have
Yeah.
one. I'll finish this and you can pop in. Then you have the
No.
habit.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you have your habit. And habits are things that you do on a regular basis, right? These are like your sort of like lifestyle thing. And these things lead to more contentment, right? And this is more of like a serotonin based thing that is kind of like all the time, kind of like a little bit of positivity, just sort of always, because I'm doing the things that I know are good for me or that I have determined to be positive for my lifestyle. So we have these kind of two competing aspects, right? One, the choice in the kind of like short-term thing, and then the habituation of choice forming a habit or a pattern, as the basis of our discussion here when making change. Let me give you a little bit of room here to say what you got.
Well, I think I'm going to throw your listeners in for a little bit of a loop. And I'll give
Sure,
you a
please.
third thing to think about, because I think we talked a little bit about addictive behavior, or maybe part of the theme. So somebody like me who has, and I didn't realize this as a kid, but as I got older, I have an addictive personality.
Mm-hmm.
So while my routines are extremely important to me, I
Mm,
know how they're going to regulate my hormones. So I know, for example, like, what my jog is going to do. It helps stabilize me. I know, for example, my training and whatnot.
yeah.
Um, but I will tell you one of the things, and then we'll talk a little bit more. But um, those same routines can also, when I don't do them,
Yep.
and that one simple thing, right? Well, now my whole day is screwed, and
Yeah.
a lot of that is an addictive behavior. To it took me time to realize that it's, and just like everything, I guess, right? There is no one thing. These
Mm.
are just so having an addictive personality. Like if I don't get my cold shower in the morning, for example, I'm like, oh well, there goes, my whole day, my cortisol is going to be all messed up. Now I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, and there goes my week, and 2024 is over with, right? And
Yeah.
then it's all downhill. So so in those choices, in those habits, inside of those routines, we also want to look for, I guess, some kind of balance, you know
Flexibility.
and it starts to flexibility, and it starts with how with where you were going. It was like, we can make these choices, and sometimes the pleasure is short lived, and then the same thing that's giving us that pleasure, whether it's sugar, exercise, drugs, the same thing that made us happy are cookies. And I don't know how you knew it was 48, but uh those cookies all
I
of a
caught you,
sudden are the
Joe.
same thing.
The ring doorbell. Right.
Yeah, Alexa. But those are the same things that we end up despising, and we need more
Yeah.
of it, and then it makes us worse, and it makes us fatter, and then
Yep.
we hate being fat. And I'm trying to shy people around the word from, like, just, maybe fat is the wrong word, overweight is the wrong word. Just
Uncomfortable.
let's just be healthy. Look, like, feel your best. It really, it doesn't have to be so much about, like, man, if you get the calories wrong and you're doing everything else right,
Sure.
you're in a very good spot,
Yeah.
you know.
No, that's a good one. That's Joe. This is why I like to have people on, is to remind me of things, right? So like choice, habit, but then flexibility within them, right? To
Yeah.
do exactly what you're saying, which is like habits are made of individual choices, right? That's how
Right.
it goes. But if you don't get to one on one day, is your week screwed? No, it's not. You know what I'm saying? Just like if I'm trying to make a change, someone who's listening to this around the new year or whenever they listen to it, whether it's, January 1 or July 1, you can make change at any moment.
Absolutely.
Like you can start now with whatever it is that you're doing. And we're going to talk a little about that moving, as we move on with our conversation here. But if you do good now and then you screw it up later on, it doesn't mean that like it's done
No.
now. It just like we
Yeah.
have to have the flexibility. So thank you for reminding me. That's why I bring smart people on. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, great. I did. That's awesome, man. I'm smart now.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, everybody's not.
Hey, you know what? I love what I do, man. And there are a few things that, like, especially you and me, we've done this. We can go for hours, because in the end, it's about my fitness. It's about, what can I take just from a comment somebody might leave in
Sure,
this podcast and say, I didn't know what you guys meant by such and such.
sure.
That will cause me to think, like, is there a gap that I'm missing to give a client?
Yeah,
Have you ever thought about this or thought about that? So yeah,
yeah,
it's always good when it comes to anything lifestyle for quality.
yeah. So now we're kind of talking about this like habit forming or
Right.
habituation, as I'm calling it, right? And so I want to give a quick definition from this book, The Myth of Normal, which I quite love. Um, part of the podcast that I wanted to kind of focus on is this idea of like things that we're addicted to, right? And why can't we make that? Why can't we stop whatever it is? And there's a couple
Right.
reasons for this that I have found to be personal that I'll give, but I want to kind of give a working definition, right? So I'm going to just read it verbatim, and it says, habit, or however you want to call it, is a form of addiction or habituation, as I would call it, and it's known as a complex psychological, physical, emotional, neurobiological, social, and spiritual process manifesting in any behavior in which a person finds temporary relief or pleasure, and thus creates a craving for actions or behaviors that have long-term consequences and short-term gains. So this is this kind of thing. And now we could say, oh yeah, that sounds like that could be, crack or meth, but that
Yeah,
could easily be a behavior,
absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
behavior, like, and it could be anything. It could be just, your choice in having, one
Yeah.
glass of wine every single night, or
Yes.
your addiction to not having the cold shower, and and how that throws the, you know what I'm saying?
Great thing. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, if I walked around smoking a crack pipe,
Yeah,
people be like, that is a really bad behavior. But if I just went into people's houses and said, hey, turn off all these bright lights, it's 10 p.m. I know you guys got kids, you're going to go to bed soon. All of a sudden, my behavior to ask people to turn off or dim lighting at night, I'm the crazy one. People are, the world is a little bit where it's like we can dismiss bad behaviors, like it's completely normal to stare at your phone before bed,
sure.
right? And that's a behavior, and that can be as toxic as a lot of other things.
Hmm.
It's horrible, right? But that's how I feel about it. I feel like behaviors um, I'm constantly scrutinized as like, well, what is wrong with you? Because I come into work and I don't let anyone talk to me for 20 minutes. I get on the floor and I breathe.
Mm.
I channel myself a little bit. I work my stretches. I don't let anyone enter my focus till I know where I want to be. But that behavior, people are like, what is he always, like, no, it's a behavior. It's not crazy. There's nothing wrong with making sure I'm okay before I let you enter my mind,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
So behaviors are interesting.
Yeah, no, behaviors are interesting, and there's a lot of various cultural pressures,
Yeah.
that are on people, and you know whether we want to agree it or with it or not, I believe it to be true. But we're all addicted to our phones.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. I mean, that's just
100%.
this is the nature of things, man.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. There's a reason. There's many reasons, but one reason for sure. This is not conspiracies documented. App companies or tech companies, they hire um, psychologists and neurobiologists to develop marketing and advertising to addict people. There was a book that came out in 2013 that showed that that food scientists had developed or were working on developing the right balance of like sugar, salts, and fats to never let you feel satiated, so that you can continue to eat the sweet, crappy processed foods that you just can't seem to get enough of, even though we know it's not healthy for us. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
it's not to take the onus off of the individual responsibility, but there is a very clear fallacy in this idea of like individual responsibility that the culture places on everybody, which is total bullshit, by the way.
Mhm.
That like everything that you do is a choice of your own. Everything that you do is not a complete total choice of your own. You're
No.
influenced by
No.
so many different things, in addition to all of your like socioeconomical influences, right? How and where you're raised, who your role models or parents are or are not there for you, if that's the case,
Yeah.
good or bad
Yeah.
in all different kinds of ways. So we're
Yeah.
influenced by so many different things that, like, for me, as I was prepping this episode and reading this book and getting ready to have this talk, it's like people walk around with their life experience on them as a manifestation of aspects of their personality. And so the choices they make oftentimes, and I'd love to hear what you have experienced with this, especially with eating, because we see it as people who help other people exercise, but it could be also drinking or just poor lifestyle choices. And when I say poor, I mean that have short-term gains and maybe long-term consequences, short-term
Mhm.
as in like coping mechanism, but long-term they're detrimental to their health. And people are using this as a coping mechanism. And the therapy that they often use to fix this is exercise, which is a good coping mechanism, or other shittier coping mechanisms.
Yeah. It's easier to do, right?
Easy to
Other
do.
shittier coping. I mean, another drink, I mean, it's fine until it isn't, and then you no longer have control of even how to gauge your brain anymore, because you first need a little bit of alcohol to maybe start pulling the levers on whatever's
Yep.
going on in the brain. And then all of a sudden you can think a little. And now you already know you're distorted, so another drink seems fine. And we already know where this all goes.
Yeah.
And the thing I think I want to touch on the most is the
Yeah.
idea of choice. And while it's true, I think everybody does have a choice. It's just, how can you ever expect that choice to be, how can you ever expect that choice to be truly, with all the misinformation like you talked about, how can you expect it to be of quality? With all the digging and all the knowledge and all the courses and just way I like to look, and it just experience, right? I might try like something with a client and it doesn't work. So if I really focus on getting it right, and I spend this much energy as a professional, how is the average person supposed to learn it from, Facebook? I laugh. I
Don't learn
laugh when like
anything from
people come in.
Facebook. That's I
I
could say
mean,
that.
people come in and then I remember intermittent fasting came along, right? And that
Yeah.
was an awesome thing, right? And it's like everybody's intermittent fasting. I'm like, yeah, go for it, cool.
Excited.
I got a little too excited. I was just charging up the phone, and but everyone's like, I'm like, how's it going? How's it been? I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for calling me. This might be like a general conversation, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm doing great, and you could look, and I know some clients they haven't lost any weight, but I'm intermittent fasting. And I'm like, that's such a beautiful step. But when you saw this 2-minute video of all the beautiful things intermittent fasting can do, especially when they say I'm bringing down inflammation, and I just saw you on another post having pizza. Well, the benefits of intermittent fasting to bring down inflammation and the amount of pizza you put in your body they're not going to offset each other,
Sure.
you know. So that becomes the junk of the internet, right? But I will say the beautiful part is it does, things like this give people opportunity to hear the whole conversation.
Sure.
What you can hear it in my tone of voice, the frustration as a trainer when people bring up healthy things, and then I think like we talked about, like, hey, what did you eat yesterday? And people say, I had a salad for lunch, right? We talked about this, and you're like, man, I haven't seen you in a week, and I'm trying to gauge what's been going in your body, the nutrition, the water. And I ask you how you've been eating. You tell me about one salad you had yesterday for lunch.
Yeah.
But I also realize that tells me that where the person is thinking. That they're thinking about the one choice they
Yeah.
made versus maybe a habit of like, hey, I'm sitting down. Here's an opportunity to have a glass of water. Right? This is just a habit because I knew I'd be in a conversation, not just for my throat, because I know I'm going to work out later. I'm already thinking I threw some salt, some sea salt, some lemon in here because I kind of want to make sure I'm charged up for my workout later. I'm going to drink some coffee. I don't want to get dehydrated. It's just a habit. I don't think about it,
Right.
right? And then
You have
there's
a
a choice
habit of
and there's a
you have a
habit.
habit of hydration, not a choice of
Yes,
drinking water.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And, I think I'd be remiss to say that like some people have more choices than others. And so their ability or inability to work on themselves in a positive way comes from a plethora of choices. Other people don't have a plethora of choices. And so their ability to choose is still as great, but they have far less options to choose from. And therefore, they have to work on other levels, on more subtle levels in order to make themselves be a different person because they don't have this choice. So if you don't, if you have like food insecurity, or you're not completely emancipated, you're living at home or with family or whomever, and they make all of your food for you, or they do all the shopping for you, or whatever the case is, I want to make this conversation fit as many people as possible,
yeah,
that like that's not who you are. And simultaneously, some people have food allergies or different kind of sensitivities. They're far more limited. And you mentioned hormones earlier. People who have thyroid issues and things like, and hormonal issues, they could eat perfect and they'll still gain weight and feel terrible.
yeah,
It's a whole
yeah.
host of, thing. And being, in the medical field, it's like there's a lot of different reasons for why people make the choices that they
Yes,
do.
yes.
But it doesn't mean that like there's still not room for some kind of improvement, even if it's not like wholesale thing. We could say very easily, don't eat processed sugars. Like, yeah, I think people probably know that, like, and I'm
Yeah, yeah. And they try. We all try.
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure people don't
That
want to wait until New Year, till January 1 to be like, you know what?
right.
Like, why would they want, they don't want to wait to stop feeling
Yeah,
bad. I mean, the whole point is to
yeah.
like ease your own
That's
suffering.
true. I think that's a really good thing to highlight. Nobody wants to wait to start feeling good,
No.
right? And nobody really wants, like, I love donuts. I haven't had a donut in 2 years because I started realizing the consequence of them. No matter how healthy I am, I thought I could always out healthy the donut. And I plan on caving in one day. That'll be okay. But but I'm also relishing in the moment of when I can, when I'm gonna pick that donut. But trying to understand that, people have these choices, and
Mhm.
something is always just going to be a little bit better than nothing.
Yeah, no, it's true. So we'll kind of move our conversation forward here a little bit, Joe. And so people don't want to wait to feel better, right? And we'll maybe just change that language a bit and say people don't want to wait to feel happy, right?
Okay.
Not the dopamine based choices on not the dopamine based sensation on a momentary choice, but on
Okay.
a larger sense of contentment, right? And so in that book, that trauma book by Gabor Mate that I mentioned earlier, that maybe I'll leave a link to in the description if people want to buy it. I'm not making anything off of it, but it's an interesting read for sure. So I'll leave a link. But so what he says is that like here are some things that are essentials for people to feel happy or content, right? And I'll just kind of read them as he has listed in the book. A sense of belonging, connection, or community, a sense of control in one's life, that a person has mastery or competence in something. If it's not work, then maybe it's a hobby or some aspect of their person, And this was something that you mentioned earlier, Joe. Self-esteem without external validation. And we're going to come back to that one because I think that one's a really big one. Um, and then the last couple here, trust that one has all the resources needed to sustain their life, which I kind of mentioned with like this food insecurity deal. And then having a higher purpose or meaning or some transcendent aspect of your life. But let's focus in on this thing here because you brought it up earlier and I want to just kind of touch on it again. Self-esteem without external validation. Because I think for me, I saw that I was like, ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right, that one right there.
It's all that. I
It,
think we're all going to be working on that for a while.
yeah, yeah, and like the sense. I think that's tied into like the sense of community, right? In my mind, anyways, because our culture prides independence, do it yourself, pick yourself up by your proverbial bootstraps, even if you ain't got no shoes on, whatever. It doesn't mean shit, right? But this
Yeah.
idea of like, American exceptionalism that everybody is created equal. And I believe everybody is created equal, but the influences around people are definitely not equal at all.
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Definitely
Definitely.
not equal at all. And thereby, you have to, you got to find your way through. And the ways in which that we are taught as communal beings are to find our sense of safety, security, and self through interactions with others
Yeah.
as a communal being. But then but the negative part about that is that when you do that exclusively as a source of like self-motivation, rely on other people for validation,
Okay.
you are going to be left empty at some point
Yeah.
because
I
you're
never
not
thought
going to
about
get
that
what you need.
distinction. I never thought of it like that. That's awesome. Or to me, that seems like that's where the breaking line would be, because I love the community part. Like that's so important. And then, but that's when it becomes, maybe then it goes to jealousy or envy or whatever, some of those bad traits. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll reflect on that more. I'll definitely take a copy of the book.
Oh yeah,
Right,
yeah,
because I love being able to, if I can get a little bit close to like, when does a good habit like a shower become bad, or in this case, where it becomes like, hey, you and me are friends, and we're colleagues, and we're cousins, and we share a lot of memories, and that's why having community when you're young, and right, all those memories are there, and they exist and they exist deep. So having all of that becomes important, and then trying
yeah,
to kind of make the segue of like, well, do I get jealous of Daniel? Oh man, he's doing this podcast, I'm not, screw him. uh and those lines, that's sometimes where it goes, and before
Yeah,
you know it, all of a sudden we're, I gotta get this type of watch because he's got that watch, and it became where he happened to buy a nice watch, and so what, I don't have one, he never expected me to get one,
right.
why am I focused on him,
Yeah. Yeah,
something like
no,
that.
no, that's that, like we talked, that's the competitive aspect. That's the negative part of competition. It's this longing. And
Yeah.
I don't know who I heard this from, but they were saying something about like, you know what, we did an episode on teenage mental health a couple of years ago. And I was listening to somebody give a discussion on this, and they were like, when we were younger, and literally when you and I were younger, um, which makes me sound old when I say that. So,
I know.
it wasn't that long ago. I swear to God.
Just a little younger.
Yeah, but no, but like when we were younger, I only had to compete with people in my school. That was my
Right.
level of competition. What with the adventation of like social media and everything else, now I have to compete with, how am I supposed to compete with every other, 13-year-old influencer who's got a Lamborghini? He can't even drive the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he's got to go,
Yeah.
platinum chains hang out. It's probably fake,
Right.
but with enough repetition of me seeing it, it becomes a
Yeah.
habit that I am longing for that. It's a meditation on desire, actually, on desires for things that I think I should have. And the
Yeah.
issue for me, anyways,
Which you and I know will eventually be a false. Once you achieve it, you'll just, and that's when you'll figure it out.
this is
Hopefully,
this is the idea. This is why one of the Buddhism calls desire empty in its intrinsic
Mm.
nature, because once you achieve the thing that you're wanting, you have it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
like what? It didn't do its thing. But
Yeah.
this self,
And that's the sad part with social media.
yeah,
It just comes down to it.
and that helps with this. That pushes this external validation. I need likes. I need comments. I need views. I need to be popular. Right? Not everybody
Yeah.
was popular. You went to high school. I went to high school. Not
Yeah.
everybody was popular. And also,
No.
newsflash, the most popular kids, spoiler alert, didn't do so well. And they
Yeah. Yeah.
peaked like at 16. That was the high of your life. Awesome.
You
You know?
know, and hopefully they went about it in a nice way, because you know what, a lot of times the mental effects of how well you navigated some of that stuff,
Yeah,
that cool kid could have been an inspiration for somebody, or it
sure.
could have been, like, I'm tired of being bullied, and
Yeah.
they lead a down path. So I've always made sure to, like, if I have a teenager, there is no bullying, in the sense that even your personality shouldn't be so boisterous that it makes anyone else feel
Yeah.
beneath you.
Well, and I'm sure you'll raise your son now, and maybe more kids at some point, God willing, if that's to
Thank
be
you.
the case, that same way. But the point of this, my sort of crux of my piece with this self-esteem without external validation, I don't think, and I've come to this recently, I don't think enough people are accepted for who they are. Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then because of that, they feel like they need to be built more. And then they become, so they identify with the use. This definitely happens
Yeah.
with women for
Well,
sure in our culture.
that's where your work becomes even more vital than people that just want to exercise.
Yeah. Well, as somebody
Right.
fostering this growth, yes. Yeah. To be able to
Yes. If you're not, if somebody isn't going to invest in themselves truly, I mean, how else are they going to learn? I'm fortunate enough that I got trainers in my family. I have you as a resource, and schooling. But if this is just for somebody listening,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
people might spend 2-3 years trying to navigate what we're talking about on
Yeah.
their own, and it might be financial. They're going to look at a financial cost, and I'll just do something for half the price. What can happen is we'll spend 2-3 years and we've all done this in other areas, but figuring out we've been down the wrong road.
Yeah.
I now still need a coach because I'm older and wiser. So someone like you who says, okay, here's my experience, and let me show you how to navigate some of this stuff.
Sure.
And so to anybody listening, if you feel lost, and get a coach, figure out figure out a program that's going to work for you. So that's a props to your work, because this is where I tend to fall short. I don't tend to even dive into anything other than motivation or some kind of patterning and awareness for people, good habits and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But a lot of times it's deeper. There is a lot of layers that they constantly have to peel back,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and we do
prop.
this. So I do want, that's where I want to go next, actually, Joe, is the motivational part. But I want to finish this piece here just so that I can say that I did, is that like this self-esteem piece is so key. Is so key. We all have different aspects of ourselves that we feel confident about,
Mhm.
right? So having good fitness, having good habits, being whatever, being good at
Yeah.
something. Usually it's being good at something or having something, But if you don't have, I try to put myself on the other side of it and say, what if I had nothing? If I felt that I was good at nothing, I felt like I was unattractive to whomever might be attracted to me, and I felt like I had none of these things. What would I do? Well, I'd probably be in some state of depression,
Mhm.
and then I would probably look for other people who felt similar.
Yeah.
Me being a connected kind of person, because misery loves company, as they say. And
It does.
it's not for me to try to like go back and tell everybody you were good little kids, even if you pooped in your pants or you didn't like playing with Legos or Barbies or your whatever. I can't do all of that. But I think the beginning of the seeds of change start with you just taking stock with who you are and saying, I'm good enough as is, if nothing ever changes, period. The sense of
Mhm.
motivation, which we'll talk about for a few minutes, is always a driver on the inside. But you have to be accepting of yourself throughout the entire process, because if not, I don't know how long you could maintain that sense of motivation without that candle burning out from too much pressure, not giving it enough oxygen. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and it's true, and as you like to say, the seeds of change, not dismissing that the seed is where everything starts.
Mm-hmm.
So just people just look at it as it's a word. If you can truly dive into the seed, and this is where you want to change, and you are content with yourself, then yeah, the rest we can work. We have a canvas
Yeah.
we can work on.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. You have a canvas to work from. No, that's right, because it's open,
it's
and then
open.
I have a friend, and she's like, she has a couple kids, and she's in really good shape. She does yoga and things like this, and she's wearing, like, she goes to the pool with her kids, and she has she wears a two-piece, and she has a couple kids. She got a little skin, little stretch. It's not bad, but like,
Yeah,
and some people are like, you're so brave, and she's like probably around late 30s, early 40s now. She's in good shape. Don't get me wrong, but she's not like
yeah,
shredded. She's not like
yeah,
you
yeah,
know and but the other women at the pool are always like, how do you do that? She's like, I am in better shape today than I will ever be in my life. I'm more attractive today than I will be tomorrow or the next day. So I might as well enjoy what I have, even if she
yeah.
goes on a running binge and eats well, whatever. But just just the attitude about that, is like, for me, positively motivating. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
And so we've mentioned this word a few times now, and as a trainer, and somebody like somebody who is still trains, but I love the word motivation. But and that's how oftentimes people think, okay, I'm going to get change, I'm going to get motivated. For me, motivation is a synonym to willpower.
Okay.
Okay. And I believe that you can have internal drive, internal motivation, or external motivation. External motivation might be like, you want to run a marathon. It's not a bad thing, so that's going to motivate you externally, or you have something coming up you want to,
Hmm. Hmm.
get in shape for. Okay, fine. Or lose some weight, or change some habits, or whatever. We're using weight loss, but it could be for any habit, or there could be internal change, which is what we're talking about. We've been leaning that way more in this podcast, is that like working on the internal motivational factors that will cause your habits to change, thereby your external circumstances will change, but motivation has a positive and negative, I'll say, sides to it,
Right. Right.
And I'm going to give you a chance to, I'm going to give you a moment to lead on that one, because I want to hear your thoughts without my, you know what I'm saying, influence at all.
Um, so when it comes to motivating, it's interesting. For me, I do it through being a little bit more of an empath. So I try to find somebody where they're at. And while on the surface, it's negative when somebody comes in, or it can be a negative thing. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I want to get in shape for this wedding," right? And that's that
Sure.
external. So
Yeah.
I know you're doing it for an external. Now, if you were to do it on your own, it's probably going to die the second you're done. If I get an opportunity to take a little bit of that, and this is just from a motivation standpoint, if I have an opportunity to take that, what you might say, shallow reason
Sure.
to make a healthy lifestyle change, if I can grab you and dig into those seeds, because even there's a still underlining issue other than the wedding,
Yeah.
because you still somehow feel inappropriate.
Yeah.
And damn it, I'm going to show you how awesome you are. I love by showing people a little bit of like, hey, you're not as awesome as you think you are, because even though you look like you're a little bit more out of shape than 2 years ago, you forgot what you were 10 years ago. Right. So don't forget. And but I am going to show you how amazing you are. And sometimes if people are willing, you can then find a healthier and positive motivation. Like, don't you want this to last forever? That wedding is next week. So build trust, build foundation, get people to focus on other things, that are doable, But in the end, man, you're right. If those seeds aren't, you still have to search. You always have to search. You still
Yeah.
have to look inside, right? And ask yourself, why am I even getting up? Right. And how fortunate, like your client, or that lady. I mean, that's a very perfect example. Like, I'm blessed with what I have. She wasn't boggled down by all that. Right? I think I
Yeah.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So I just motivate by just putting a smile on. Yeah, letting people know that, man, if you just create some good lifestyle habits for a lot of people, let me just show you a better way to sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Get a good night's sleep, and do something positive to your body, both from a food standpoint. That might be just starting some vitamins, or making sure you are having salad every day, and
Sure.
maybe saying something physical. So sleep well, do something physical 2 hours a week, do something good that's you're ingesting for your body, and maybe take one bad thing out. It is so much easier to search in there, because your hormones are operating optimal, or more optimal. You're sleeping better. We can think clear. Then people search. But turning on an app and then sitting in there, which I've done, right, when I first started searching, turning on an app and saying, I'm going to think about nothing. And you were actually the first one who told me, this was years ago, the thought of thinking of nothing is a thought in itself.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, there goes the last 6 weeks. I thought I was clearing my head of nothing, and then that was actually, and I meant to thank you for that. That was actually a big turning moment, and how I really started saying, okay, well, turning on an app is not going to cut it. If I want some self-improvement, really got to dig in and do some research,
Yeah.
and find out how this whole damn thing works.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. No,
so
it's true.
that's motivation, man.
Yeah. No, and motivation is funny, right? Because different things motivate different people. And I think, like, we're trying to give, some, I guess, personal / professional experience, advice, how-tos, if you will, on, like,
Yeah,
New Year's resolution people, anybody who really wants to make positive change. But we're just recording it around the New Year, so that's why we're mentioning it. But that really, like, everything does come from the inside. Everything comes from the inside. And I think it comes from, like you mentioned earlier, or you pointed out earlier, it comes from a place of wanting to feel better, wanting to have an improved blank, and whatever that blank is, that's going to be your motivation. So if your motivation is to lose weight, well, then let's do the work that goes into losing weight, which is not just a restriction of calories, or an expenditure of calories through exercise or whatever,
right.
you got to do those things too. That has to happen.
Right.
But
It has to happen, exactly. But that's not it.
Right, but that's the outpouring. That's the flower, you know. The seed is, I have been through something in my lifetime, or I have seen influences, I've been around influences that have affected the way that I view myself, and therefore my habits have led me to be where I am now.
That's it right there.
And so, like,
Yeah.
you know, and if people can get some kind of therapy, or they can go see you know, like a trainer, a good one,
Yes.
you
Please.
know,
Please,
or
for the love of
yeah,
God.
yeah, or like, you know, an acupuncturist or a talk therapist, or get into like an anonymous group of some type.
Mhm.
What we're saying is that, like, that connection to somebody or some bodies can help you to see yourself in a better light as an external way, and then the process hopefully will help you to see yourself better internally, so that this process is really about you unfolding the sort of deeper versions of yourself that maybe you want to experience on a more regular basis. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like how I am, how I've, that's through this whole conversation and everything that I've done to
I
get
love
here.
how you put that. I love how you circled back to that. I love that. Absolutely. So, because some part of me, I wasn't sure how I was feeling about because this is us actually just having a conversation.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure how I felt about the community part of things, right? So knowing that or hearing you come full circle and saying community is actually good.
Oh yeah.
It's only at right. It's remembering that I love this. I love that we're chatting. Loving that I'm on the internet and able to see when the podcast comes up, and there goes Daniel again. You know, trying to help people, and then seeing how you brought it full circle, but only after it still starts within.
Yeah.
You know, that was awesome. That was really good.
No, good. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad. And listen, when people, you know, community, it could be any community. It doesn't have to be your family. Some people's families are a pain in the ass. You know what I'm saying? And so me and Joe are family, so we got it. You know, like,
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's all
you know,
good.
there's
But
pros and
that's
cons.
exact. But it's what you grew up with.
Yeah.
It's the family you have now. It's the family you grew up with, and that could mean community. That could mean on so many. I mean, you know, our clients can become like family. You know, you're seeing them sometimes more than family. By family, I could also mean outside of your current home.
Yeah.
But it really does come to community. But God, do we have to be guarded today with this fucking internet, man? You know, it's I've learned so much. I've had access to currently like a coach I've been wanting to work with some biomechanics stuff,
Yeah.
and I go on Facebook and I love seeing everything, and then the next scroll down might be somebody who just bought a new car and I'm wanting to buy a new car, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, there goes,
it pulls at you,
right,
you know?
right, it pulls at you. But it wasn't pulling at me a millisecond ago. I
No.
wasn't even thinking about the new car. I was thinking about the money I was saving because I didn't buy a new car, right? I
Well,
just paid this one off. So you see how quickly something could have determined. I'm a grown man with my own confidence and things, but that's where things can
it,
get a little tricky.
it can't, yeah. So that's why, you know, without the need of external validation is a huge piece. And, you know, having people around you to help you, you know, to
Yeah,
remind you of these things,
yeah,
to encourage the aspects of yourself that you want encouraged, actually, you know, is a big one. And then to
yeah,
have some, you said you're a grown man with your own sense of confidence. That's because part of it, you have a mastery, or you feel like you have a confidence in what you're doing. You know, this gives people a sense of being, a sense of greater purpose beyond just the mundanity of like working for some hours, making some money, paying some bills. You know, saving is a sense of security. It's a sense of option. It's a sense of power, in a sense. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
So, you know, all these
And that
things.
was one of the
Yeah.
descriptions, wasn't that?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's why
Right.
I'm
So
I'm wrapping it
I
up, you
see
know?
you. I see you, Dan. But I love the mastery part, and it's only after doing it and doing it and doing it. And I think anybody that works on mastery will never say they're a master.
No.
Like right, yeah. But it's only like, wow, this has been. I'm kind of only now getting at a point in my career. I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at this. I really like what I'm doing. God, I'm seeing changes. I got now like 10 years of data. I'm like, oh, I remember when they were born, and ooh, okay, this is how well I've been able to keep these parents in shape through now
Yeah.
this kid is 13, 14, 15, and it's like, okay, so I'm getting good because I have external markers or communal markers, and that's also what
Yeah.
I mean. Like clients can be friends, and
Yeah.
and it's all there. It's all beautiful stuff, but just being aware that I do feel, to your point, feel a little bit more confident that I do work on mastery. How good I actually am, I don't know, but the beauty in wanting to master it
Yeah.
is just is put me on another level of I'll say the word high. I'm truly enjoying another phase of my life where
That's great.
I'm understanding the body a little bit more, so that yeah, I'm focusing on mastery. So that book is definitely going to be a read.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I guess sort of in, we kind of summed it up a little bit with everything, with all the things
Yeah,
that we talked about, but in at the end of it all, community, sense of control, mastery or competence, the self-esteem without external validation, the feeling of like safety, that you have all the things that you need, and this higher sense of purpose are all, key components to it. But I'm really into like feeling your own sense of self without the need for anything or anyone else to kind of make you
yeah.
feel anything other than whoever it is that you are. And then with that sense of you, then you go and you do you, like you
And
go and do you.
that could include a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so important to highlight.
Yeah. Or
You know,
whatever you're into,
yeah,
multiple.
yeah, either or. But in other words, like remembering that, for me, it's my wife, right? Like
Yeah.
making sure that and I'll use my wife as an example, making sure that she's her own woman and I'm my own man. And while we love each other, I don't need to, and I always make her happy, but my existence isn't validated because she's having a bad day or a good day or
Sure.
whatnot,
Sure.
But I can tell you, if I wasn't into this world and being a little bit more on the sensitive side, the way hard to say again as wanting being an Arabian male wanting to be alpha, right? It's hard to admit a lot of times that you're a little bit more emotionally sensitive than others, right? But
That's
remembering that
yeah,
that's a
that
tough
part,
one.
well, yeah, we don't have time to get into that, but that's the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we've been wanting to talk about this, like male toxicity, and how
yeah,
just that
yeah.
idea. Yeah,
I'll wait for that one.
that thing, it removes compassion, and I don't know, it's too much to get into. We're not gonna
I know. We'll stick with this, but I think that's where it goes. Is full circle. It's
yeah.
just co- covering that those behaviors and community, and
Yeah.
getting coaches that are going to help round it all about.
Yeah, or getting, we call them guides, or teachers or teachings, or however you can, because everybody can afford those kinds of things. But you
Yeah,
start this podcast is free. Share it with all your friends, enemies, family members. Give it as a gift. Give it as a prank. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? But there's
oh, D.
resources out there. There's tons of resources. It's just a
Yes.
matter of taking it upon ourselves to help each other, so that when someone is ready to make a change, they can find a Joe. They can find
Yes.
a Daniel. And if not, then they could find a podcast. They could find work. They could find, using the positive side of Instagram, they could find somebody's account who's providing decent information, who gives a shit,
Hmm.
that they can go and ask, hey, I don't have money to pay for your services. Can you give me a couple pieces of advice or whatever? You would never tell anybody no.
Right.
You would never tell
Right.
anybody. I would never tell anybody no. You know what I'm saying? And the hope in this
And
conversation.
people know that, and good
Yeah,
coaches don't.
right. Well,
Yeah,
that's why
yes, of course. Come on, let's talk. I mean, are you
yeah,
kidding? Sometimes I'll wait for the opportunity.
yeah, of course.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
So that's what I'm saying. Like to be able, the resources are out there. And if you have any questions on, making further change that we haven't discussed, because it's a huge topic. Obviously, I think we did all right though.
All right.
Hit me up at on Instagram at ginandtantra. Email me at ginandtantra@gmail.com. Let's see what else. Leave a comment in the YouTube section.
Definitely.
Leave a review on the Apple podcast. That helps the show grow. Like, comment, subscribe, blah 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 blah. All the things that people are supposed to say when you do this. Yeah, but that's it. So, Joe, thank you for coming on.
Hey, you're welcome, man.
I
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I
I love you,
appreciate it.
cousin, and I appreciate it. And
I love you too,
thanks for
man.
anyone that thank you, and anyone that's been listening. stay positive in the sense in which you feel good about yourself and the actions that you do.
Yeah.
And truly, one step at a time can conquer a mountain. So we'll all get there together.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're here to help.
And if you have any questions for Joe or want to get a hold of him, just email me and I'll put you guys in contact. And
Thanks,
yeah,
Steve.
thank you.
I
For Eric,
appreciate it, man.
this is Daniel. That's Joey. We'll catch you in the next one.
We'll see you guys. Thanks, Steve.